My ex was better in bed than you'll ever be, she sneered during a fight. So I quietly packed my bags. She just sent me a panicked text. I'm pregnant, and he wants nothing to do with us. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The smell of searing garlic and chili flakes should have been the scent of a good night. For me, it was the aroma of an apology. Chloe had been off all week, a storm cloud in human form. Her mood a low-pressure system I'd been cautiously navigating around. I thought a homemade puttanesca, her favorite, might be a peace offering. She came through the door with the force of a gust of wind, dropping her bag on the floor with a thud that was more punctuation than accident. Smells strong, she said, not looking at me as she headed for the wine. Puttanesca? I said, forcing a lightness into my voice I didn't feel. Your favorite, I guess. She poured a large glass of red, leaning against the counter. Her silence was a physical weight in the room. I kept stirring the sauce. Tough day. They're all tough days, Liam. You wouldn't get it. Your job is just numbers. Quiet. Mine is actual people with actual problems. The jab was precise and practiced. I let it slide. Well, I hope this helps. I booked us that table at the Oak for Saturday, too. 8:30. I turned, smiling, expecting a thaw. Instead, her face was a mask of cold irritation. Saturday, she said, her voice flat. I told you, Sarah's having her birthday thing on Saturday. A cold trickle of dread started in my chest. You mentioned it, but you didn't say it was for sure. I made the reservation days ago. It was the only one I could get. So cancel it. She took a long sip of wine. God, why is everything so difficult with you? You never listen. The unfairness of it was a spark on Tinder. I was listening, Chloe. I was trying to do something nice. You've been miserable for a week, and I'm trying to fix it. Maybe if you communicated what you actually wanted instead of expecting me to read your mind, things wouldn't be so difficult. Her eyes widened. I rarely pushed back. She placed her glass down on the counter with a sharp clink. Communicate? You want me to communicate? Fine. I'll communicate. You are so boring. Your life is a spreadsheet. Dinner reservations? A puttanesca? It's all so safe. So predictable. You're like a human beige wall. The words hit like slaps. I felt my face grow hot. I'm predictable. I'm sorry I'm not a chaotic mess, Chloe. I'm sorry I have a stable job that pays for this apartment and our vacations. I'm sorry I remember your birthday and don't create drama for fun. See, she sneered, a triumphant, ugly curl to her lip. This is what I mean. You think stability is a personality trait. It's not. It's just a cushion you hide in. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice rising despite my best efforts. What, exactly, would make me less boring? She took a step forward, her eyes glittering with a malice I hadn't seen before. She had been saving this. She needed a reaction, and she was going to get the biggest one she could possibly engineer. You know what the real problem is? She said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You're just bland. In every way. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping. We're just having a fight, Chloe. This is what couples do. They fight. Fair? She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. You want fair? Fine. I'll be fair. She took another step, closing the distance. Her gaze locked on mine. She was savoring this. My ex, Mark? He was a lot of things. Irresponsible. A mess. But he wasn't bland. He was passionate. He was animal. He was better in bed than you'll ever be. The things he could do. I've been faking it with you for months. Maybe longer. I've lost count. The world didn't slow down. It stopped. The sizzle of the sauce in the pan behind me became a distant, irrelevant noise. The air was sucked from the room. Every memory of intimacy we'd ever shared, every quiet laugh in the dark, every trusting touch, shattered and reformed into a grotesque joke. I saw them, in flashes I didn't want, her and this ghost of Mark, and I was the pathetic audience to my own humiliation. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands, hanging at my sides, went numb. There was no anger. Not yet. This was too deep for anger. This was a surgical strike on my soul, and all I felt was the cold, hollow void left behind. I just looked at her. I watched the triumph in her eyes, the satisfaction of having finally drawn real blood. She opened her mouth, probably to twist the knife further. What, nothing to say? Can't handle the truth. But I was already moving. I turned my back to her, walked to the stove, and turned off the burner. The puttanesca was ruined, burned, and bitter. I didn't look at her again. I just walked out of the kitchen and down the hall to our bedroom, closing the door behind me with a quiet, definitive click. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, in the dark, and let the ice in my veins spread through my entire body. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just processed. The 7 years we'd been together played out like a movie on fast forward, and every scene was tainted now. Every "I love you" was a lie. Every moment of vulnerability was a performance. She didn't come to bed. I heard her on the phone later, her voice a low, excited murmur, probably telling Sarah how she'd finally put me in my place. I was an obstacle in her narrative, not a person. When the first gray light of dawn filtered through the blinds, I felt clean. Empty, but clean. The decision was made. It wasn't a decision to fight for or to argue about. It was a logistical problem that needed solving. I heard her shuffle to the guest room around 2 a.m. Good. At 7 a.m., I heard her alarm go off, followed by the shower. I waited. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, making a single cup of coffee. I needed to be sharp. She emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, her hair wet. She looked at me cautiously, the fury of last night replaced by a calculated wariness. "You're up early," she said, her tone neutral. "Lots to do," I said, my voice even. I took a sip of coffee. It was bitter, but I welcomed it. She hovered, expecting a conversation, an apology, a fight, anything. I gave her nothing. I just looked out the window at the waking city. "Look, about last night," she started, the beginning of a non-epiphany apology. "I'm sorry, but you made me." I turned and looked at her, and my gaze must have been as hollow as I felt, because she stopped mid-sentence. "We can talk later," I said. It wasn't a promise. It was a dismissal. A flicker of confusion, then annoyance, crossed her face. She shrugged. "Whatever. I'm going to be late." The moment the front door clicked shut, the spell was broken. I was no longer a ghost. I was a machine. I pulled my old duffel bag from the top of the closet and a single hardshell suitcase. I worked with a methodical efficiency that was its own form of therapy. I did not pack sentimentally. I packed for survival. Clothes, toiletries, passport, the folder with my important documents, my laptop and hard drives. I left the photos. I left the stupid, overpriced decorative vase she loved. I left the books we'd bought together. I left every gift she'd ever given me. The only personal item I took was a single, worn leather journal from my grandfather. It predated her. It was mine. In under an hour, my life with Chloe was reduced to one suitcase and a duffel bag. I loaded them into my car. I went back inside. The apartment was silent. The burned puttanesca pan was still on the stove. Her half-empty wine glass was on the counter. It looked like the scene of a crime. I took my key off my keyring. I placed it on the kitchen counter, right next to the wine glass. A final, silent period at the end of our sentence. I did not write a note. What was there to say? Any words I gave her would be twisted, used as ammunition, or used to feed her drama. My silence was my statement. My absence would be my answer. I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. I didn't look back. There was nothing in that space for me anymore. It was just a container for the memories of a man who no longer existed, a man she had systematically dismantled with one cruel, calculated blow. As I drove away, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt a profound, staggering sense of relief. The walking on eggshells was over. The constant, low-grade anxiety of never being quite enough was gone. The cage door was open, and I was already flying, long before she even realized I was gone. The first week was a silence so profound it felt like a physical presence. I'd rented a small, furnished studio apartment on the other side of the city. It had white walls, a neutral sofa, and no history. It was perfect. The silence there was different from the tense quiet I'd endured with Chloe. This was a peaceful, empty canvas. I didn't rush to fill it. I let myself feel it all, but at a distance, like a scientist observing a fascinating, painful specimen. The betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer, breathtaking unfairness of it. I'd built a life with her, a shared fortress, and she had not just abandoned her post. She had detonated the foundations on her way out. I didn't fight the pain. I acknowledged it, sat with it, and then I got to work. I went to my job and buried myself in the clean, logical beauty of spreadsheets and projections. There was no emotion in a well-balanced equation, only truth. I started running, not from anything, but toward a version of myself that felt stronger, more solid. The burn in my lungs was a feeling I could control. I reconnected with a few old friends, the ones Chloe had always subtly dismissed as your boring college buddies. We drank beer and talked about nothing important, and it was the most meaningful conversation I'd had in years. I was healing. The wound was closing, leaving behind a scar that was tougher than the original skin. Chloe, however, was just beginning to fester. The first attempt came about 10 days after I'd left. I'd missed a work call and saw a voicemail notification from an unfamiliar number. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. I knew. I played it on speaker, my hands steady as I meal prepped chicken and broccoli. Seriously, Liam? You're just going to run away? That's so pathetic. You left your stupid, ancient journal on the shelf. And your good winter coat. I'm not your storage unit. Call me back. We need to talk about your stuff and the rent. Don't be a child. Her voice was sharp, entitled, laced with anger. There was no remorse, only annoyance that I had disrupted her narrative. I felt nothing. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. The journal and the coat were relics of a past life. I could buy a new coat. A week later, an email popped into my personal inbox. The subject line was, "We need to talk. Liam, I'm worried about you." This is a really immature way to handle a fight. Running away and blocking me? It's extreme. My therapist says that when people have a breakdown like this, it's often about unresolved issues from their childhood. I'm not angry. I'm concerned. We shared a life for 7 years. We at least deserve a conversation. You can't just ghost me like a bad Tinder date. It's beneath you. Please call me. Chloe, I read it twice. The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost impressive. She was now the concerned, enlightened one, and I was the emotionally stunted project having a breakdown. She was trying to lure me back into the drama, to make me justify my own sanity. I hit delete. Then I created a filter to send any future emails from her address straight to the trash. The peace in my new life was deepening. I'd started learning guitar, the clumsy chords filling the quiet studio. I'd gone on a couple of casual, low-stakes dates. It was refreshing to talk to someone who didn't have a pre-written script for who I was supposed to be. Then, about a month in, my friend Dave texted me. "Dave, hey man, Chloe just texted me asking for your new number. She said it's an emergency. Everything cool?" I sighed. The siege was escalating. Me, all good here. It's not an emergency. Please don't give it to her. Long story, but we're done. Dave, no problem, brother. You got it. An hour later, a text came through from Dave's number, but the voice was hers. From Dave's phone, "Liam, it's Chloe. I know you're getting these. Mark and I hooked up after you left, but it was a mistake. He's already being a jerk, just like I knew he would be. He used me. Can we please just talk? I miss you. I miss us." I stared at the screen. He's already being a jerk. Not, "I'm sorry, but I told you so." An admission that she'd run straight to the very person she'd used to eviscerate me, and it had blown up in her face. The irony was so thick I could taste it. She wasn't sorry for her cruelty. She was sorry her gamble had failed. I didn't reply to the text. I simply texted Dave back. "Me, she's using your phone now. Can you block my number in your settings for a few days? Sorry for the hassle." Dave, geez. "Yeah, no problem. Stay strong, man." I put my phone down. The initial cold shock had given way to a steady, unwavering calm. She was unraveling. And I was just beginning to weave a new tapestry. 3 months to the day after I'd walked out, I was on a date. Her name was Anna, a graphic designer I'd met at a bookstore. She had a quiet laugh and didn't feel the need to fill every silence with noise. We were at a quiet tapas bar, sharing patatas bravas and talking about the best cities we'd ever visited. My phone, face down on the table, buzzed once. Then again, and again, a rapid-fire sequence of vibrations. Anna raised an eyebrow. "Someone's popular." "Sorry," I said, flipping it over to silence it. A string of notifications from an unknown number lit up the screen. Not calls. Texts. A lot of them. A cold certainty settled over me. I knew who it was. "Everything okay?" Anna asked, her tone gently concerned. I made a decision. I wouldn't let Chloe poison this, too. I wouldn't give her that power. "It's nothing urgent," I said, and I meant it. I turned the phone off completely and slipped it into my pocket. Just spam. Please, tell me about Lisbon. The evening was lovely. I walked Anna to her car, and we made plans to see each other again that weekend. I felt a genuine, unforced happiness. When I got back to my studio, it was late. I poured a glass of water, and only then, in the peace of my own space, did I turn my phone back on. The texts loaded. There were 7 of them. The previews told the story, a journey from pleading to panic. Unknown number, 9:42 p.m. Liam. I don't know if this is still your number. Unknown number, 9:43 p.m. I'm so sorry for everything I said. It was horrible, and I didn't mean it. I was just angry and stupid. Unknown number, 9:45 p.m. You were the best thing in my life. The only real thing. I see that now. Unknown number, 9:48 p.m. Mark is a monster. He's gone. He completely abandoned me. Unknown number, 9:50 p.m. The thing is, I'm pregnant. The words on the screen didn't feel real. They felt like a plot twist from a bad movie. I sat down, my mind perfectly, eerily clear. Unknown number, 9:52 p.m. He found out, and he blocked my number. He changed his locks. He told me to never contact him again. Unknown number, 9:55 p.m. I'm all alone, and I'm so scared. You were always so strong and kind. You knew how to handle things. Please, I have no one else to call. I read the final text 3 times. The irony was so absolute, so brutally poetic, that it circled back from tragedy to farce. You were always so strong and kind. The very qualities she had mocked as boring and predictable were now the lifeline she was clutching at in her desperation. The exciting, animal passion of Mark had resulted in this: abandonment, terror, and a profound, isolating consequence. I felt no anger, no schadenfreude, not even a flicker of the old pain. Looking at those panicked words, I felt only a profound, clinical pity. It was the same feeling I might have for a character in a documentary about poor life choices. It was detached, academic. She had chosen her storm. She had glorified the lightning, and now she was shocked to be drowning in the flood. I didn't type a response. I didn't ask how far along she was. I didn't offer advice. I didn't say, I'm sorry to hear that. I simply selected the string of messages and tapped delete. Then I blocked the new number. I finished my water, washed the glass, and got ready for bed. As I lay in the dark, the only thought that crossed my mind was a calm, final assessment. Her crisis was real. Her fear was palpable. But it was not, and would never again be, my problem. The gym parking lot was my sanctuary at 6 a.m. The world was quiet, the air was cool, and the only sound was the crunch of my shoes on gravel. It was a time for me, a ritual of self-possession, which is why seeing her leaning against my car felt like a violation. Chloe. She was hunched against the morning chill, her hands shoved deep in the pockets of a coat I recognized. My old winter coat. The one she'd complained about in the voicemail. The irony was almost too much. She looked diminished. The glittering, cruel queen was gone, replaced by a pale, tired woman. There was a slight, undeniable roundness to her stomach beneath the coat. The reality of her situation was written on her body. I didn't break stride. I didn't speed up or slow down. I walked towards my car as if she were a stray shopping cart, an obstacle to be moved. Her eyes locked onto me, wide and desperate. Liam, thank God. You're here. Her voice was a frayed wire, buzzing with anxiety. I stopped a few feet away, my gym bag slung over my shoulder. I didn't say anything. I just waited, my keys in my hand. You got my texts? She asked, her words tumbling out in a rush. I didn't know what else to do. You weren't responding and I'm just so scared. I looked at her, my expression neutral. I received them. The flatness of my tone seemed to throw her. She blinked. And, Liam, I'm pregnant. The father abandoned me. You said you'd always be there for me. Her voice cracked on the last word, a performance of vulnerability that might have worked on the old me. That was a promise I made to my girlfriend, I said, my voice calm and measured, like I was explaining a basic contract clause to a difficult client. You ended that relationship the moment you decided to use intimacy as a weapon. The consequences you're facing now are yours and Mark's to manage. Her face crumpled. Real tears this time, born of panic, not performance. So that's it. You're just going to abandon me? I'm carrying a child. She gestured vaguely at her stomach, as if presenting evidence. I'm not abandoning you, Chloe, I said, and the truth of it was absolute. I disengaged from your life, by your own design, months ago. My responsibility to you ended when you showed me who you really were. The panic in her eyes began to curdle into something darker, uglier. The mask was slipping. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so much better than me now? You're just going to walk away from your own. It's not mine, I interrupted, my voice still level, but with a finality that cut her off. We both know that. The timeline doesn't lie. You made your choice. You chose the animal. Now you have to live with the animal's consequences. The anger flashed fully across her face, her true colors blazing through the desperate veneer. You're pathetic. You were always a coward. You can't handle a real woman with real emotions. You just hide in your boring, safe little world. I almost smiled. There it was. The same script, the same insults, now wielded from a position of utter powerlessness. They had no sting left. They were just words. I sincerely hope you have a healthy baby and find the support you need, I said, and I meant it with the detached benevolence of a stranger. But you will not find it with me. My involvement in your life is over. I pressed the unlock button on my key fob. The car chirped. She was still leaning against it, so I stood, waiting. After a long, tense moment, she pushed herself away from the car, her body trembling with rage and defeat. I opened the door, threw my gym bag inside, and got in. I didn't look at her. I started the engine and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing alone in the vast, empty parking lot, a shrinking figure of her own making. I did not feel triumph. I felt nothing at all. And that was the greatest victory of all. The coffee shop was bustling with the lazy energy of a Saturday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, catching dust motes dancing in the air. Anna was laughing, a real, unreserved sound that made me smile in return. We were debating the merits of different coffee roasts, a debate of absolutely zero consequence, and it was perfect. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it. A text from Mark, my old college buddy, not the Mark. The subject line preview read, "You are not going to believe this." Ran into. I flipped the phone over, screen down. "Sorry," I said to Anna. "Work?" she asked. "No, just spam." It was the truth. Anything from that old world was digital spam, clutter to be ignored. Anna smiled, a warm, knowing look in her eyes. She didn't pry. She never did. That was one of the 1,000 things I appreciated about her. We existed in a present that was unhaunted by the past. Later, after I'd walked her home and we'd made plans for dinner the next week, I checked the text. "Mark, you are not going to believe this. Ran into Sarah at the grocery store. The gossip mill is wild. Apparently, Chloe had the baby. A little girl. She's living with her parents out in the suburbs. It's a whole thing. Anyway, hope you're well, man. Let's grab a beer soon." I read the message. The name, Chloe, felt distant, like remembering a character from a book I'd read long ago. There was no tug of nostalgia, no pang of residual hurt, just a faint, clinical interest in the conclusion of a story. I typed back a reply. "Me, sounds tough. Hope she's doing okay. And yeah, beer next week sounds great. Tell Sarah I say hi." And I did hope she was doing okay, in the same way I hoped the barista who'd been having a rough morning was doing okay. It was a generic, human wish for another person's well-being, entirely divorced from personal investment. I put my phone away and looked around my apartment. My guitar was leaning against the sofa. A hiking guide for a trail Anna and I were planning to tackle was on the coffee table. The silence was peaceful, owned, and full of potential. Chloe was a closed chapter. A lesson learned. The boring, safe man she'd mocked was now living a life of quiet, profound joy. A life he had built deliberately and without her. The exciting, animal passion she'd chosen had left her with a child, a broken spirit, and a room in her parents' house. The ultimate power wasn't in getting revenge. It wasn't in making her see. It was in the simple, unassailable truth that she no longer factored into my happiness. Her existence, her struggles, her consequences, they were all just background noise in a song I was no longer listening to. I was free, and the view from here was anything but boring. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.